Hi there and good morning. We are live for today's Coffee Talk TBSC. Today's session will be discussing license optimization versus compliance. What is the difference? So in today's session, I'm going to go ahead and review exactly what license optimization is and what license compliance is through software asset management and SaaS cloud strategies. If you would like to sign up for our coffee talks, please visit our website, or we are on Eventbrite. Also, if you have any questions for me, feel free to get in touch with me on social media. We have a Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. If you use the hashtag CoffeeTalkTBSC, we can get in touch with you with any questions or comments. So keep in mind, on the right-hand side of the screen, we do have the questions and answers session open. If you have any questions throughout this coffee talk this morning, please feel free to drop in your questions on the right-hand side and I will get to them with you. Now, first and foremost, what is SAM? So SAM stands for Software Asset Management. You know, if you're in the IT field or in tech industry, you probably have a general idea of software asset management because it is listed in IT asset management. You can see that this kind of bubble on the right side, this picture. So software asset management is part of IT asset management. So you're probably familiar with this. But what's nice is software asset management actually breaks down into two different components. One of them being software licensing management, which is where the the optimization feature ties into. And then there's also the second feature, which is software licensing compliance. I would say that these are the two biggest parts of software asset management that really need attention and care. And I'm going to go over those with you today and give you some advice on how to enhance your monitoring of these two different areas of software asset management. So what exactly is the goal of software asset management? Well, it helps keep track of your assets. You should simplify the process. We see a lot of businesses in the industry that have manual processes, or we have some people who just aren't sure of different automatic ways of software asset management. And so it's become this huge manual process that takes up a lot of time and effort. But our advice is definitely try to automate that. And I will go over ways you can automate that later on in this presentation. Another goal of SAM is to reduce the cost. So that means reducing the costs directly or indirectly. So that's another thing that you can do with automation, which is really good. It kind of gets rid of the cost of maybe overtime for your employees. But likewise, you can get products to the market faster through automation, and that means happier customers and probably an increase in sales. So that ties into the other goal of SAM, which is increasing your return on investment or increasing your ROI as well. The last goal of SAM is to plan strategically. So this means supporting your IT department or other departments. So an example of this would be you're trying to ensure that the creative team, the marketing team in your company has everything that they need in order to create the content for your social media, for instance. So you have to plan strategically and see exactly what applications that they commonly use. Oftentimes this is Adobe products, such as InDesign, etc. So what you can do is perhaps plan getting on a cloud subscription, so you pay month to month, and your your creative department will have those licenses on a rolling basis, and so your software asset management can monitor the usage, track and see where the installs are, and give the best products to your employees so they have everything that they need to perform their job for you. Now, as far as software asset management, I'm sure you remember that really nice bubble graph I showed before where it broke down software asset management into two sections. The first section was one of the sections was software compliance. And so the question I have today is, what is software compliance? Well, if you're still into getting to know what software asset management is. I'm going to review software compliance. Essentially, it is, what are you legally entitled to use? That's the biggest question when it comes to software compliance. So when you think of compliance, immediately think of legally entitled to use. It's the legality of everything. It's taking the inventory of what you have, understanding your usage, knowing the contract agreements, your terms and conditions. Of course, this does involve auditing, and you're required to have the correct licenses for each device. And another thing about software compliance is you have to run on the most current versions. And so that's another nice thing about the cloud and SaaS products, is that you get these updated features automatically. You don't have to worry about updating on your own. But that's another component of software asset management, is if you have everything installed on your laptop, for instance, and it's not a cloud subscription, you have to perform the updates manually, and you have to keep track of that to ensure that you're following the terms and conditions you signed up for. Now, this does seem a little bit scary, but I have some examples here for you to kind of give you a better understanding of what software compliance exactly is. So an example of software compliance using Microsoft 365. A lot of businesses today are using Office 365 for their communication needs, especially in this time right now where there's a lot of remote working. Now, the compliance is formal and mandatory. This is part of the terms and conditions, so it's nothing that should be a shock or a surprise to you. Microsoft does like to monitor and see whether you are in compliance or not with their licenses. Now, typically they can perform an audit once every year, but you know, this could be hit or miss. They don't have to, but they can. They will provide a 30 days notice if they need to perform an audit. So you will get a notice beforehand to kind of get your ducks in a row. But there are some audit triggers. Oftentimes, if your business is growing super fast and Microsoft sees that you're purchasing a lot of licenses, perhaps they'll want to perform an audit just to see that you're on the right track with everything. You know, just to make sure everything's going okay and smoothly for your business. Now, what exactly is the Microsoft audit process? I mean, I can only say really briefly what it is, just through the research that I performed. You will receive that formal notification letter. It gives you that 30 days notice. Then verifications are executed by independent accounting firms. So they won't be exactly done by Microsoft, but they will be hired by Microsoft to perform these audits. And of course, the audit time will vary depending on your IT structure, how big your business is, etc. And then at the end, you'll receive a compliance or non-compliance notification. So what you can do, say for instance, you're not in compliance, there are different actions that you can take in order to make sure your business does become Microsoft compliant. So you can rectify the situation for sure. Microsoft gives you that ability. They do provide a web link for the actions for non-compliance. So if you're ever confused, feel free to Google, and you can certainly find instructions on how to get compliant with Microsoft. Now, like I said, I have done this all through my own research, so I'm sure you can pull up information on your own if you need better answers to this. Also, you can always email me or use the hashtag if you have any questions about the non-compliance issues or auditing issues, and I can certainly get back to you. Now, one really nice feature about non-compliance with Microsoft is this remote lock the device. So for instance, say you have an employee who has 10 installs, and it's common that with Microsoft Office 365 applications that Microsoft only allocates 5 installs per user. So if you're having 10 installs with 1 user, they're not in compliance because they've over-installed by 5. So what you can do is remotely lock the devices that the user is in non-compliance with. So for instance, say they bought a new laptop and they're not using their old laptop, and they never uninstalled it on their old laptop. What you can do is remotely lock it so they don't have to use their old laptop in order to access the product. You can also retire the non-compliance device, which is essentially the same as remotely locking in a way, is that you just kind of see what's installed, where is it installed, and then retire that device. As I said, the new laptop, old laptop situation is a pretty common issue that businesses face. Finally, you can send a push notification to the end user. So you can say something like, hey, you have over-installed over 5 devices. What exactly is going on here? Can you rectify this on your own? So rather than, doing it on your own, you can ask the employee to take the proper actions and steps to ensure that you're in compliance. Now, there are penalties for licensing violations with Microsoft 365. Now, as I said, this is just an example of what compliance is, how to remain compliant. So this might be different for different applications that you purchase, different cloud apps, different installs, etc. So one of the penalties for violating your license agreement with Microsoft is back payments, which is a pretty standard thing. Say, for instance, you are underpaying and you have more employees and you've hired more throughout the year. Say you've hired 20 and none of them are running on any purchase licenses. You're just using Microsoft without having a proper license. They might pick up on that in the audit process and just ask you to pay those back payments to cover those new 20 employees that you hired within the past year. Now, there could be additional fines as well with the compliance if you're violating the compliance with your licensing agreement. And these fines will vary depending on the terms and conditions that you agreed to when purchasing your licenses. And I would say the worst case scenario, but also the least likely scenario, is the court hearings for stolen licenses. Now, of course, you have to pay the legal fees for that, which is not good, but it also takes a lot of time, a lot of stress, a lot of worry. You can certainly not get to this point, and I can show you different ways of not ever getting to this point with our product, Smarter SaaS. At the end here, I'll give a demo for you. So that was an example of software compliance. Now I'm going to move on to the second component of software asset management, which involves license optimization. So what is license optimization? I'm going to go ahead and review that for you today. So license optimization is certainly a part of license management. And so what it does is it ensures correct licenses are being used. So it also avoids unnecessary direct costs through licensing, maintenance, and support. And you also should know the license and application usage and know the license and application installs. So you can see here that there is a bit of overlap when it comes to usage and installs with optimization and compliance. But when you're optimizing, it's a bit different than compliance, because with optimization, you want to make sure that you are using the licenses that you've purchased. So an example would be, say you are an Office 365 license and you're using an E3 version of the license, which gives you slightly more applications to use than, say, an E1 license. Now, what happens if you notice that your employee isn't using Microsoft Teams, which is an application included into that bundle you're paying for? Okay, well, why is it exactly they aren't using Teams? Is it because they're still familiar with Skype and Skype is where they're comfortable? Are they going outside of Microsoft and using Zoom or Google? Why exactly is it they haven't used Teams? So you can look at this data and see who's using what and really figure out, is this license worth what I'm paying for? But also, why exactly are my employees not using what I'm providing for them? So what you could do is to help in this certain case is obviously provide some sort of training. And what's really nice with Microsoft is they do have free training courses for your employees to help them stay up to date with the different applications that they provide through Microsoft Office 365 and more. So if you ever need a team catch-up, you can always have the Microsoft training. Likewise, there's a whole bunch of tutorials with Microsoft on YouTube that could be of service as well. Now, I would say if you are looking to optimize, or say you're new and you still don't really understand the concept of what optimization is, there are certain questions you can consider in order to just improve where you are at with your software asset management. So the first question you can ask is, are we using the correct licenses? Now, as I said, there is going to be overlap between optimization and compliance, but that's because even though they're covering relatively the same areas, it's two different topics. So are we using the correct licenses for compliance means, are we using the correct licenses as far as, are we using them correctly? Do we have the correct installs? Are we using the correct licenses, meaning, oh, it's so hard to word it, but essentially what I mean is, with optimization, it just means, say for instance, you know how I said earlier with an E3 license, perhaps you're not using all the applications included, so you can always downgrade to an E1. So that would optimize your license usage because you would have downgraded. Likewise, you could provide the training so you don't have to downgrade at all. Whereas with compliance, it's a matter of the auditing process and just ensuring that you're following your licensing agreement. So another question you can ask yourself, a question to consider for optimization is the effect of optimizing these licenses reasonable? So I would say oftentimes you really need to figure out what's the best option for your business, especially with your IT department. Those guys are oftentimes really busy doing a lot of different things. And so what you can do to make life a little bit easier is perhaps automate processes. I did go over business practice automation at my last coffee talk. If you missed that, feel free to follow us on YouTube to see different examples of how to automate your software. Now, another question to consider for optimization is what licenses are deployed versus used. So this often involves like a surplus of licenses. So an example would be, say for instance, you bought additional licenses with, let's see, Salesforce. You bought additional licenses with Salesforce. You bought 5 new licenses because you were expecting to hire 5 new people. However, things changed with your business. You ended up not being able to hire. So now you have 5 licenses that you purchased, but you're not using. Oftentimes what happens in this situation is you kind of forget about what you purchased. And if this is like a cloud license, you're paying for something month to month that you're not using at all. So what you can do is have software like our Smarter SaaS to analyze what software you have, and then we can see the usage versus the non-usage and come back to you and say, okay, well, you have a surplus of licenses. You bought these 5 licenses. Why aren't they deployed? And if you figure out, oh, well, they're not deployed because we never hired those people. Oh, well, they're not deployed because we totally forgot about them, etc. Then what you can do is reduce those and get rid of them so the next month you don't have to pay for those additional licenses. And that's the beauty of cloud licensing, is that it varies each month. You can flex your subscribers up or down each month, so you don't have to constantly worry about overpaying or underpaying for your licenses. Now, another question for optimization is, can we reharvest licenses? Well, of course you can reharvest licenses, and what I mean by reharvesting is this. Say, for instance, you have an employee who is no longer with the company, they just recently left. What you can do is take that license and reharvest or reallocate to a different employee, or say, for instance, a new employee you're hiring in their place. So you can, of course, reharvest your licenses and not have to worry about adding any additional costs to your software asset management. Now, another question is there a license surplus? And I would say that question ties really closely to what licenses are deployed versus used. As I said, with the surplus, it does happen for various reasons, and we definitely have the smarter SaaS that can be deployed for you, runs automatic reports, pulls data, and I'll show you how easy it is to see your surplus information with our demo coming up. Now, finally, another question to ask or to consider for optimization is, are we overspending on licenses? Same applies to are we underspending? Because of course, even though optimization and compliance are separate, they are combined. So if you are underspending on licenses, that is absolutely no good, because that means you are in non-compliance, which risks those auditing fees, which is never good. And even though there might be benefits to say overspending because you would avoid those auditing disasters, it's not really a benefit if you're paying for things that you're not using. And so what I can do is teach you how exactly to remain compliant each and every month with our Smarter SaaS product here. So how TBSC can help? Well, we can certainly help by tracking licenses. Now, I do have Smarter 365. So our Smarter SaaS monitors over 40 different SaaS applications, but for today's demonstration, I will only focus on Microsoft Office 365. Now, our Smarter SaaS product is preventative maintenance. It monitors installs, monitors usage, and it even suggests training needs. And of course, we can help you virtually, which is excellent because everyone is working from home. And what's really nice about our product is you don't have to be there in person to do all these installs and all these devices. It works completely remotely, so it can monitor applications of everyone working from home. Now, it is quick, efficient, and cost-effective as well. So it's a great SaaS management strategy tool, but of course, I can't just say here and give all the praises. I'm going to show you the product so you can see for yourself how great the product is. But before we get to that, I'm actually going to see if we have any questions coming in. Let's see. I have 2 questions. Sorry, here we go. One question is, what is an example of license optimization? I gave a couple throughout the presentation. So I would say an example of license optimization is tracking and monitoring your usage and understanding that you should use everything that you're paying for. And if your employee is not, then offer them the training that they need to ensure that they're using the correct products. A really good thing about Microsoft Office 365 is the Teams feature, because it's a great communication tool. So for instance, if your employee isn't using Teams, they're really missing out on the communication with the rest of your employees, but at the same time, you're not getting what you're paying for with the product. I do have another question here. It says, rather than wait for an audit, how can we regularly monitor internally the position on compliance? Well, that's a really good question, because as I said, there's 2 different ways you can do it to be as basic as possible. There's the manual process, and then there's also the automatic process. So my advice would, of course, be doing the automation of compliance monitoring. And I would say you can do that through, a third party. Like here at TBSC, we have developed this product, Smarter SaaS, for Microsoft 365 specifically to help you out with your software asset management. And we can ensure you stay and remain compliant so you don't ever have to worry about any auditing disaster. Let me just go ahead and stop sharing my screen real quick. And I'm going to pull up the demo here. We have just a few minutes left. So I would really like to just pull up this demo and show everyone our product. we're really excited about this product. It's been in development for we did launch back in May, and since then we have added different updates. So as you can see, this is the dashboard for Microsoft Office 365. And what you can see here is you can have the reharvest, the optimization opportunities, and as I said, remember that surplus, we can show you where your surplus is. Now, it also says total active users at 64%. Our goal, and our goal we would tell you, is to try to get at least 95% usage, because then you really know that you are using exactly what you're paying for. So an example of surplus here, let's go ahead and just click on it, and I can show you the surplus example. You can see that the demo business data is saying there's one license, Office 365 Business Premium, that's currently being paid for, but not being used. It's not allocated to anybody. So we would go back to this business and say, okay, what exactly is going on with this license? You're spending $12.50 a month on this license that's not being used. Do you have plans for it? Can we allocate it somewhere, or can we just drop it down for you? So you can get a really nice visual representation of your different surplus information. Likewise, you can see, the product utilization per user. Like I said, it's really nice, really visual. But of course, you can always export these via CSV file. A really cool feature that we have here is the reharvesting feature. Now, this is something that could be both beneficial to the optimization and the compliance, simply because you can see the assigned product, who is it assigned to, the price that you're paying, and whether they're active or inactive on the products. And so, say for instance, you are having an inactive user, what you can do is send an email to the users, and now you can change the time frame. So say you're looking 90 days back or 30 days back, you can adjust the time in which you're looking, and say this user hasn't been using their licenses in over 90 days. Send an email to them and see, hey, do you realize you're not using your license? What exactly is going on? Can you click this link and validate that you still are using these licenses and that you need them? And oftentimes, if you don't get a response, or of course, if they email you back and say, hey, I'm no longer part of the company, etc., you can reharvest their licenses and reallocate them to a different department or somewhere else. So that's a really nice automatic feature for you, makes things a lot easier rather than having to do it manually, which is something I wouldn't recommend for something complex like software asset management, because things can fall through the cracks. I was making that big example earlier about Microsoft Teams, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on Microsoft Teams here just to give you an example of, what you can do to track and monitor your usage. So you can see here the total active user is only at 22%, and that's pretty low. So of course, you really need to ask yourself the questions, well, why exactly is this private messaging so high, but the call count is so low? Is it because they're calling on cell phones? Is it because they're using Zoom to make the call? Why exactly is it not all being done through Teams? Teams is a really good hub for communication, and not only is it just Teams, but Microsoft allows third-party apps to integrate. So something like VoIP, for instance, say you have a large sales team and then you make a lot of calls, you can always get VoIP to integrate, which is a telecommunication system, and you can make sales calls. It's super easy and efficient. Now down here, you can see another great visual representation. I would say that's the great thing about our data, is that if you're a different kind of learner, say you're a visual learner, this is really good because you can see firsthand, really quickly, your eyes jump to it, exactly what's going on. Of course, bright green is really good, and then red is bad, and then things in between are kind of muddy waters. They're not good, but they're not bad, So you can see the private chats here are really fabulous, but how is it exactly we get these meeting counts up? I gave some different examples before, but of course you can look over that data and talk to us, and we can give you our best advice on how to increase that usage. So let's just go ahead and go back to the dashboard. Now, of course, what's really nice about our Smarter SaaS product is we have a specific compliance feature. And, you know, as I mentioned to you earlier about the colors, it's the same concept here. Green is great, yellow means, hey, slow down, and red means absolutely no go. This is not a good idea. So you can see here the device compliance. As I had mentioned earlier in my presentation, with Microsoft Office 365 specifically, they only allow up to 5 installs per user. So here you can get an overview of who the user is, where their installs are at, and how many devices they have installed. So anything under 5 is green, anything under 5 is good. 5 is just like, okay, you've maxed out your installs, just watch it. And then of course, red is really not good. So this means you are no longer in compliance. So say for instance, an audit would happen, you could get pinged for this. But you know, as I said before, this is manageable because with our product, we show you exactly where the problem is and rectify the situation, you know, instantly after that. Of course, you have us on your side and we can provide the correct, accurate, and actionable data for you to ensure that you remain compliant. So what I'm going to do is just go back to my presentation here. Yes, it's sharing. Okay, excellent. So we are coming to the end of the coffee talk, unfortunately. I know I did a lot of talking today, so if you have any other additional questions, please use the hashtag CoffeeTalkTBSC. Find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube. You know, this whole session was recorded, so I will certainly post this on YouTube later today, and you can find that through our website or social media. Just want to thank you so much for joining. Our next coffee talk is the 30th of October. 10:30 a.m. always, and this one we will teach you how to reduce your remote working mistakes. So if you'd like to sign up for that, you can check us out on our events page, or we do have an Eventbrite as well. So there's a lot going on. Feel free to just reach out and let me know if you'd like to join our next coffee talk. All right, thank you so much for joining today and appreciate your time. Have a great morning. Bye-bye.